Hello, my dear friend. Today I want to take a closer look at one of the most transformative and perhaps most complex experiences in human life, the transition to parenthood and its profound effects on couple relationships. I want you to imagine this scene. After months of waiting, building dreams and sweet excitement, a baby is born. That baby is your baby. That moment is undoubtedly one of the purest, most miraculous moments in life. A world made for two now transforms into a family of three. The joy and excitement brought by this new beginning seem to light up your entire world. However, as time goes by, different shades slowly begin to appear in the background of this magical picture. Sleepless nights, endless physical and mental exhaustion, having to withdraw from social life, and most importantly, a tension and distance between spouses that has never been experienced before, all begin to emerge. Those two people who once gazed lovingly into each other's eyes suddenly find themselves in the middle of a logistical operation. Basically, conversations like do this, do that, like who's changing the diaper, did you feed the baby, you've got night duty, can be reduced to task-oriented commands like these. This situation is a well-known and expected crisis period in psychology and family systems theory. This is not an abnormality. On the contrary, it is a natural response to a fundamental change in the system. The transition from a two-person or dyadic system to a three-person or triadic system is the greatest structural change a relationship can experience. This transition is not just about adding a new individual, but also about a complete redefinition of roles, identities, priorities, and even the perception of time. Even relationships that are considered the strongest are shaken in the midst of this storm of change. Couples ask, "We weren't like this before. What happened to us?" When they ask themselves this question, they often experience great confusion and disappointment. They may feel as if that special bond between them has disappeared with the arrival of the baby. In this section, we will try to understand the psychological dynamics behind this universal experience. And we will discuss practical methods grounded in theory that can help couples not only keep their relationship afloat during this challenging yet precious process, but also strengthen it even further. To properly analyze this process, it is essential that we grasp the magnitude of the change taking place. This tiny being that has entered your life is, in fact, a massive sentence of responsibility and needs. Sleep deprivation is a stress factor in itself and negatively affects the functioning of the prefrontal cortex, which governs higher-level functions such as problem-solving and empathy. When we add to this the hormonal fluctuations in the mother, the increased financial and emotional pressure on the father, social isolation, and the near elimination of personal time, the resulting picture causes the nervous system to remain in a constant fight-or-flight mode. Small issues that could previously be tolerated can turn into massive conflicts during this period. At this point, the first and most important fundamental psychological principle that couples need to adopt comes into play. Externalizing the problem, that is, seeking the source of the issue not in each other, but in the new and challenging situation you are in. You are not two enemies, but players on the same team, and the real opponents are sleeplessness and fatigue. It is the stress brought on by adapting to this new situation. Saying things to your partner like, "We're in this situation because of you," or approaching with an accusatory tone, instead of that, saying, "This exhaustion is really wearing us down. What can we do about it as a team?" Asking this question will instantly turn the entire communication dynamic into a positive one. We can say that this is, in a way, a mental reframing. The enemy is not your partner. The enemy is the situation you are both in together. This shift in perspective encourages cooperation and solution-oriented thinking in the brain rather than triggering defense mechanisms. Now let's move on to another critical concept, preserving relational capital. The famous psychologist John Gottman's emotional bank account metaphor actually explains this situation very well. Every positive interaction is an investment in this account. Every negative interaction is like withdrawing money from it. Life with a baby by its very nature is a process that constantly withdraws from this account. Fatigue, stress, and arguments are never ending. If you don't consciously invest in this account, it's inevitable that the system will go bankrupt after a while. So how do you make this investment? This is where the small but impactful moments we call micro-meetings come into play. I know you might be thinking, what kind of meeting can you have with a baby? Romantic dinners or movie nights that last for hours might be just a dream for a while. That's not what I'm talking about. What I mean are 5 or 10-minute conscious moments sprinkled throughout the day. For example, when the baby falls asleep for that 20-minute nap, instead of reflexively grabbing your phone and seeking refuge in the numbing, distracting effect of social media, you could have a coffee together with your partner in the kitchen, and for those 10 minutes, just look into each other's eyes and ask, "How are you? Are you really okay?" That's what I mean by asking. But this question is not like asking, "What's the latest with the baby?" It's not about requesting a report. It should genuinely be about being curious about the other person's individual existence and emotional state. These small moments are the ones that make us feel much closer to each other. Don't think of them as insignificant. In fact, these tiny moments of connection not only strengthen the emotional bond, but can also make you more resilient to stress biochemically. Accumulating these moments is the most effective way to keep your emotional bank account full and to increase your relationship's resilience to crises. During this period, the quality of communication also changes radically. Fatigue and stress can cause us to use our words as weapons. Toxic communication patterns such as criticism, blame, defensiveness, and stonewalling, what Gottman calls the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, can unconsciously become part of our language. The most powerful antidote to this, as emphasized in communication expert Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication model, is the ability to express our needs. For example, the sentence, "You haven't been around all day, you never helped me," is a criticism and instantly activates the amygdala, the threat detection center in the other person's brain. So what is the result? The result is defensiveness, counterattacks, and a vicious cycle of arguments. Instead, let's try expressing the same situation like this. "I was alone with the baby all day, and I really feel exhausted and lonely." We are expressing the emotion. This is an important issue. "I really need some rest and to have a conversation with an adult." Here we are also stating the need. "When you get home, could you take over the baby from me for just half an hour so I can take a shower?" Making a clear request. The difference between these two statements is as clear and distinct as night and day. The first is an attack, while the second is an invitation to cooperate. When you clearly express your own emotional state and unmet need, instead of pushing the other person into a defensive position, you invite them to empathize and become part of the solution. This change in language dramatically reduces the potential for conflict at home. With the arrival of a baby in your life, you may experience a situation known in sociology as role engulfment. The roles of mother and father become so dominant that these parental identities swallow up all other identities such as woman and man, spouse, lover, and friend. 99% of conversations revolve around the baby. Even though it's a natural process to talk about sleep, feeding, colic, and diapers, this is actually a situation that erodes the foundation of the couple's shared identity, the us that existed before the baby, and poses a danger. For this reason, it is vital to consciously create spaces for conversations that are not about the baby. When the baby falls asleep in the stroller, instead of immediately starting to talk about concerns related to the baby, play a song you used to enjoy listening to together. Of course, as long as the baby doesn't wake up, remind each other of a funny memory from the early days when you first met. Talk about the good old days, chat about a series you watched, a book you read, or simply discuss what's happening in the world. These are some of the best ways to remind yourselves that your relationship is not just based on a parenting partnership, but also on an intellectual, emotional, and humorous bond between two adult individuals. This keeps the foundation of your relationship strong. Because remember, the family structure is built upon this solid foundation between spouses. Murray Bowen, one of the prominent figures in family systems theory, explains through his concept of differentiation of self why personal time is not a luxury but a necessity during this period. A healthy relationship is not an enmeshment where two people lose themselves in each other, but rather a bond formed between two separate and whole, healthy individuals. With a baby, these individual boundaries can easily become blurred. That's why both partners need consciously planned, sacred individual time to spend alone. This is not a favor one partner grants to the other, but a fundamental right for each individual to protect their mental health. Setting clear boundaries within a weekly schedule, such as mom time from 2 to 4 on Saturdays and dad time from 10 to 12 on Sundays, guarantees this right. During those 2 hours, the partner who stays at home takes on all responsibilities and the other is completely free. These breaks allow individuals to remember their own identities, refresh their energy, and return to the relationship with more patience and motivation. Remember that famous rule from airplane announcements. Put on your own oxygen mask first. If you don't take good care of yourself, you can't be helpful to either your baby or your partner. One of the most common cognitive mistakes made during this process is mind reading. He should also realize how tired I am. He needs to figure it out himself. Assumptions like, he should understand that I need help, are the main reason why disappointments and unspoken expectations accumulate and eventually turn into an outburst of anger. Remember, your partner is not a psychic. Especially when your partner is trying to cope with their own stress and fatigue, expecting them to understand your hints or the messages behind your silence is not very realistic. That's why the golden rule is don't assume, talk. Express your needs, feelings, and expectations clearly, openly, and honestly. I'm really overwhelmed today. Please help me. Speaking of which, it's always healthier to remain silently resentful and bottle up your feelings rather than sulking. Likewise, don't make assumptions about him, her. Instead of labeling it as indifference when he comes home and sits quietly, say, "You look tired today? Is there anything you'd like to talk about?" Asking this helps rebuild that bridge of empathy between you. And finally, I want to talk to you about a philosophy that encompasses all these points like an umbrella. It's the concept of the good enough parent by Donald Winnicott, one of the pioneers in the field of child psychology. Being crushed under the pressure of that unattainable, impossible to reach perfect parent image imposed by social media and society can make you ruthless toward both yourself and your partner. You will make mistakes, you will feel inadequate, and there will be moments when your patience runs out. In these moments, approaching each other with compassion instead of criticism is the greatest remedy for your relationship. When your partner makes a mistake, instead of judging or criticizing them, being able to say, "It's okay, we're all learning through this process. We're a team, we'll handle it together," will strengthen the bond of trust between you more than you can imagine. Appreciate each other's efforts. You've worked so hard all day. Thank you so much for everything. Even such a simple expression of gratitude makes the other person feel that their efforts are recognized, and for a weary soul, this is truly one of the best remedies. Remember that despite all its challenges, this process is only temporary. This is not a sprint, but a marathon. And in a marathon, the most important thing is to be able to run hand in hand with your partner, supporting each other. When you make it through these stormy seas, if you have managed to be true companions to each other, you will arrive at the harbor as a couple who are much stronger than before, tightly bonded, and who have faced one of life's greatest challenges together. Thank you for listening to me. See you next time. Take care.